Welcome to Zcast, everybody. I'm Zeus Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm back as your host for another one of my thought leadership videos. I'm joined today by Ajay Pandya, the Director of Product Management at Masergy, now a Comcast company. So congratulations on that recent acquisition. We're going to be talking AIOps today, but before we do that, Ajay, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and who Masergy is.
Thanks for having me over, ZK. I am a Director of Product Management here at Masergy, now Comcast Business. So thanks a lot for your wishes. Masergy is the world's leading secure cloud networking platform. So we have been in the business for over 20 years. We provide managed services for networking, managed security, collaboration, and we've been helping our customers out in any of their telecom IT needs. 2019 was the first time we launched AIOps as a network assistance tool for IT teams. And since then, we have not looked back. We have added a lot of enhancements. And this year, we added another major feature drop in our AIOps. And that's, I guess, we are talking about that today.
Before we get into that, though, I do want to give a shout out to eWeek, my media partner, and all Zcasts are done in conjunction with eWeek. So in addition to watching here on YouTube, you can also read the summary on an upcoming eWeek article. Now, Ajay, we're here to discuss, as I mentioned, AIOps. ZK Research, my research firm, just ran an AIOps study in partnership with Masergy. So thanks for funding that. I know Masergy has been an early adopter in AIOps. Give me an idea why Masergy wanted to study this topic.
Well, we really wanted to understand what is the benefit that AI provides to IT teams, right? So we totally understand that IT teams are totally overwhelmed today. One of the study findings tells us that IT teams spend over 50% of the time just troubleshooting and figuring out customer issues. So it's like, essentially, think of it as a workman or a painter just washing his paintbrushes while the actual paint job is still on. So everyone understands that AI has benefits. It's just a question of how do we take advantage of these benefits and how do customers see what AI can provide in optimizing or whatever they do with the network day-to-day jobs. What can we do or what can AI do to make their lives better? So we know that AI can revolutionize. It's being used in so many other applications apart from IT services. But tell us, we wanted to understand what is it that we can, or what are IT leaders thinking that we can help out with our AIOps solutions? So the idea was to understand AIOps, the attitude, the usage, the business value, as well as the journey where this technology is taking them in the future. So that was the main idea.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to study. Before I was an analyst, in full disclosure, I was actually a network engineer. I'd say I spent probably a very good chunk of my time, at least 30-40% of my time, doing nothing but troubleshooting problems. And so, and even back then, I had a lot more visibility into network operations than most network engineers have today because of the rise of the internet, things like that. So, but before we go deeper into the study, let's level set the audience and define AIOps. So as the name suggests, AIOps is artificial intelligence infused into IT operations. Pretty simple concept, very difficult to actually do. It comprises machine learning, behavioral analytics, and predictive analytics. And so, there's massive amounts of telemetry information and data being generated by network devices. I suppose if you had Spock running your network, you might not need AIOps, but not everybody has a Vulcan as part of their NOC team. So, for that, we need something else. So it makes I think a good way to think about it is it makes IT infrastructure smarter, more responsive, and more secure. And one of the keys to AIOps is it doesn't just give insights. There's lots of insight platforms, but it actually gives you recommendations on how to repair that problem. And so we've had good alerting tools for a long time. The question is, what do you do about it? And finding out what the source of the problem is and the recommendation to repair is actually where a lot of the troubleshooting time is taken up. I also think it's a path to fully autonomous networks. So if we're really going to get to this point where we can automate network operations, we do need AI for that. And I think it's a good way to think about it is there's a lot of good automation tools out there, and they work pretty well in static environments, but we don't really have static environments today, right? Everything's always changing. And so how do we keep those automation tools up to date with what's going on? We do that through AI. So it's a hot topic with both vendors and buyers today. It leads to some confusion that I'll talk about later. I think it's something that I've noticed a big change in the attitude of network engineers. A couple of years ago, you mentioned AI, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with that." But now they're very open to it. So Ajay, give me some examples, some real-world examples of how Masergy AIOps tool works.
Well, we call our AIOps tool as the friendly 24/7 network monitoring agent or friend that is always on the lookout for what is happening in the network. So things like alerting earlier when things might go wrong. For example, figuring out if there's going to be an excessive packet loss. Now, this is something that is proactive as compared to reactive, right? Typically, we get stats when something starts going wrong. By the time things get resolved, the ship has sailed. So we use available data that includes things like traffic patterns. We look at people's usage patterns, and based on that, using algorithms, figure out what could be happening based on some certain preconditions that are met. And this automatically gets enhanced as and when the system goes through further learning. So things like, for example, as I said, excessive packet loss, or even things like video applications getting routed over the most optimum path. That could be one of the things which would completely seamless to the user under the hood, so that the user gets the most optimum video or audio conferencing experience. Also things like configuration errors. For example, IP addresses, overlapping IP addresses could be something that are endemic to the system, and that would be automatically detected and also notified to the user, or the user will be recommended to reach out to the service provider, right? So many different things that would eventually result in a knock ticket or a support ticket would be automatically detected, in some cases resolved, or at least notified to the service provider so that they can work on it to resolve it.
Yeah, I think I've likened the AIOps to being a tool to help you find that needle in the stack of needles, right? There's so much data being generated today. Even the best network engineers can't look at the data, correlate it manually, and figure out what's going on. And I know a lot of really good network engineers, and but obviously the volume of data has gone up. So before we dive into the study, though, let's go through some of the demographics. It was 500 US-based companies, a little over 500. It was all IT decision makers and hires. So we had some C-level executives in there. We studied 7 verticals: technology, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, finance, media and communications, and pro services. We only studied enterprise class companies, so they had 250 million in revenue and up to 10 billion. I think below that, the networks get pretty simplistic. And so you've seen the data, I've seen the data. What's the most surprising thing that you learned from the findings?
I see that there's a lot of excitement. I mean, if I put myself maybe 5 years ago, then I could have easily seen people treating this whole AI thing is like, I don't want to lose control over the operations of my network, right? Now there is a certain level of trust that has come in. So I mean, the data, one of the things that I really found interesting was that 64% of IT leaders are saying they're already using AIOps. Over 50% of users, I believe 55% users say that they're using it for both networking and security together. And almost everyone, like above 90% IT leaders, said that it is important for AI ops to play some role in management of the network going forward. So I think that was really cool. I mean, again, this is survey results, right? It's not the reality. But I know that you also have something to share. So do share what this study also tells you.
Yeah, the number, the 64% number of companies saying they use apps, I think is both a good news, bad news number. I think on the positive side, the majority of companies, almost 2/3, are looking for an AI ops solution to help them manage their network, and I think that's good because they actually recognize that there's a problem. The downside is I don't really believe 64% of companies are using AI ops. I think one of the challenges for companies is that there's a lot of solutions out there called AI ops, but not all solutions are created equal. Some are simply rules-based systems, and I think this is where IT buyers need to actually be careful. And so machine learning is the key. Does the solution get better over time? In fact, a lot of AI solutions, like I know I've talked to Masergy about theirs, it wasn't perfect day one. It made some errors, but over time, because AI is a closed loop system, it takes the incorrect data, feeds it back into the system, and that becomes part of the training set, and then it becomes smarter and smarter over time. And so that's an important thing for buyers to look for. Does the solution get better over time? And this is why due diligence is critical, though, when you're choosing an AI ops partner. So IT leaders are, from a positive side, again, meeting apps with open arms, and they recognize an essential path forward. But they do have to make sure they're making the right decision. The study also shows that companies are using and benefiting from AI ops. I think one of the interesting couple of data points is the top use cases for respondents include cloud application analytics, performance improvement, network service optimization, faster threat detection and response. In fact, 64% of users measure AI ops success based on IT operational efficiencies, and another 54% on improved network or app performance. And this, to me, what this reveals, Ajay, is that there's real business value in an AIOps investment, both from making AI more efficient, but then also improving business operations. And so how are you seeing Masergy clients benefit from AIOps?
Absolutely. So, I mean, think of it this way. One of the findings that we were really surprised with was that it takes, on average, IT departments over 30 minutes to fix and resolve a customer-facing issue. 30 minutes. Imagine like your service down for 30 minutes. So that is that is fundamentally wrong. And what we also observed is that with AI ops, video conferencing, critical application performance is significantly improved. And in just even addition to AI ops, like even we recently also talked about Performance Edge, one of the other solutions that we put out, where critical traffic is assured even on best effort services like broadband, right? Now, again, AI ops does play a role there as well, but overall is basically your critical applications that are always observed by this machine learning system, so that the traffic patterns are understood under the hood, and the network responds to those needs dynamically.
Yeah, some of the data points you gave, or the stories you told, I think is a good lesson here, right? If you're improving video, improving app performance, that actually helps the business improve productivity. And so I think the lesson here is that while AIOps can indeed lower the cost of running IT, to me, that's not the end game of AI ops. It's about the transformation of the IT organization and the transformation of the company. And so I've always thought if you do an IT project simply to lower cost, there's better ways to do that, right? And so AI ops is another example of that, where do it for the right reasons, which is business and IT transformation. So another thing we learned from the study is that the preparation is key in the step, is a key step in the journey. In fact, the thought process of measure twice, cut once is probably appropriate here. But more than 2/3 of companies, 73% to be exact, identified SD, or software-defined network monetization and visualization, as a top investment priorities, as a prerequisite for AI ops. And so I think as Masergy has been both an AIOps pioneer and one in SD-WAN. And so what's your take on why there's such a strong linkage between AI operations and SD-WAN?
Well, AI, anything is only as smart as the data that it works from, right? So if you take a non-software defined network, it is basically not centrally managed, centrally orchestrated. And the information essentially is siloed. Like it's siloed in many ways, like it is siloed across an IP and optical network, for example, or siloed in a control plane and data plane. So now what I'm trying to say is that because of that centralization that SD-WAN provides, because of the centralization that SD-WAN with SASE for networking and security provides, that data is now available, which is much more enriched. And that data is now able to give us a lot more information out that our AI algorithms can operate much efficiently as well as more optimally, right? The study also showed us that over 70% of users found that AIOps performs really well in a SASE architecture.
Yeah.
If you think about how the network is going to evolve with the distributed workforce and thin branches, SASE is going to be a lot more entrenched in enterprise networks in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's where AIOps is going to come into picture. So, I just feel that this is the right approach for a software-defined anything. And as a result, the new age networks, the new age enterprise networks are really very good candidates for AIOps. And this is where also Masergy, sorry.
Yeah, no,
this is where also we specialize, yeah. So
yeah, I think an easy way to think about it, right, is that there's a lot of people ask me how to define software defined, and there's a lot of technical definitions about separation of control plane and data plane and stuff that nobody understands. But I think when you do something in software, it's programmable. So if I want to use AI to be able to help reconfigure my network, it needs to be programmable. And so legacy networks weren't, right, where software-defined ones are. And that's why I think that linkage is there. I'm not even sure how you would manage, you'd have to create a lot of middleware if you were actually trying to use legacy gear. And so that would be non-optimal as well. So, but like you mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of confidence and trust in AIOps today. And the study also revealed some interesting data points on where it's been taken in the future. So 84% see AI operations as a path to a fully autonomous network. 86% expect to have it a fully automated network in the next 5 years, which I thought was aggressive, but we'll see. And 97% are confident that AI ops can be trusted to act alone. And so those numbers are really kind of fascinating, right? So, the majority of companies, 97%, that's almost the entire respondent base now feels AI is at a position to be trusted alone. And I think part of that is just that people make a lot of mistakes. And so once AI gets over that threshold of people making mistakes, it's now better than people, right? And I think that's people and buyers starting to understand that. And the 86% that feel that they can get to a fully automated network in the next 5 years, that's great from an industry perspective. I don't really know if we'll get there in 5 years or not. It's a little bit like the journey to a fully autonomous car. Is it going to happen in 5 years? It'll be in that time frame, though, and that's going to be kind of fascinating to watch. And certainly, that's going to be an area for a lot of investments. And so the investments that Masergy's made, should pay off here. So, but why do you think creating a fully automated network is so important today, Ajay? And how is Masergy AI Ops helping its customers get there?
So just to kind of reiterate on that earlier point, this is a journey as compared to a destination. So having a fully automated car might not be something that we will see in the very near future, but there will be a lot of functions in a working of a car that will become automated. Same thing about networking, right? We might not end up creating the next Skynet, but at the same time, there'll be areas of network management that will take benefit of automation. So, there are lots of things that are happening with the pandemic. For example, hybrid workforces is essentially now a norm, right? People are working from anywhere. People are working from their home. People are working while being remote, coming into the office every once in a while. Lot of IoT proliferation. And as a result, the amount of attack surface that security vulnerabilities open up is just like something that is going to be very difficult to manage. So as a result, as applications move towards cloud, as there is this whole digital transformation that is going to take place in the networks, there's going to be more and more use of automation in different aspects, for example, in troubleshooting or in monitoring or in analytics. And AIOps is a tool that covers all that with its algorithms that get better day by day. And as a result, we see this increasing trend that IT leaders are starting to put trust into these tools, that we are now okay that at least some sort of automation is available that is smart enough to help us in our day-to-day operations, reduce our costs, and also make us more efficient, right? So we have already laid the groundwork for this in some way. In the next few years, you will see products coming out of Masergy that will have things like closed loop automation, and that is going to essentially what I would call is self-healing, self-managed, self-organizing networks, right? So the idea is that AIOps puts us in the right step to achieve that goal.
All right, and I've been looking at the clock, going a little long here, so I'm going to wrap this up. But I want to leave the audience with some key takeaways here. And I think the key takeaways from the study to me were the era of AIOps is here, right? And so you need a strategy. The majority of companies are looking at it. If you are not, you need to start the investigative process now, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And so take that as a word of warning. And in this fast-moving era, you don't want to be left behind. Second, you need the right platform. So AIOps requires both SD-WAN and SASE. And so you want to use a provider that can bring you all those together. It's one place for network and security data, one place for automation. And, the 97% of people, do trust AIOps to run the network itself, but autonomous networks, fully autonomous networks, it's impossible to get there until you move your software and security, your network and security into software, and that requires SD-WAN and SASE. We are moving into a period of prolonged work from home or hybrid work, right? If you just look at the trends, I see you're in the office, but I'm sure you're working in some sort of hybrid mode, as is everybody else. And the new recipe to solve this work from home and hybrid work problem is AIOps plus SASE. And so you get better predictable application performance. You need that, or your users are going to be calling your help desk all the time. Smarter security for remote work, right? We have to be able to give corporate grade security to everybody at home. And the only way to do that is through SASE. You want one platform. If ever we've needed that single pane of glass for ease of management, it's today. It's impossible to correlate information across management platforms. And so work towards that. And like I said, AIOps is that path to autonomous networking. It's been, I think we've looked at that as sort of a nirvana state for networking for a long time, but it's right around the corner. And so normally I get the last word in, but Ajay, I'm going to give you the last word here. So do you have any closing remarks, anything else you want to say?
So we are particularly excited about AIOps as the path for especially automation, right? So we build the best-in-class networks. We just feel that for any of our customers' success, their IT network has to be cutting edge, and we really strive very hard to provide the best in experience for them to use the network and our products, right? And the idea is that network providing the maximum of value for the investment that they've put in with this kind of smartness is something that we just feel very excited about. And I hope that our customers also feel the same way. I welcome everyone to go to masergy.com, check out AIOps. We have a lot of content over there. And apart from that, thanks a lot for having me over.
All right. Well, Ajay Pandya from Masergy, thanks for joining me. If you're interested in that survey, it's on both the ZK Research website and Masergy website. So feel free to go download and learn more. So again, thanks for joining me, Ajay. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Zcast.